Hello, everyone, and welcome to the EUPATI Alumni webinar about personalized medicine and patient engagement. My name is Zhana Popova, and I am the EUPATI Patient Engagement Training Coordinator. Today, I am very happy to moderate this webinar and to discuss together the importance of personalized medicine in the patient engagement field. Personalized medicine is an important part of patient engagement in medicine research and development. It is based on a detailed profile of the individual, including the subpopulation that this individual patient belongs to. Understanding the different lifestyle factors helps to make the best possible decisions about managing the patient's disease. In addition, we believe that the decision should be made jointly by the doctor and the patient. The development of personalized medicine is growing rapidly, and it is expected to embrace patient engagement as well. While this is still challenging, there is an emerging consensus that patients should be involved in the development process of the personalized medicine. As a response of this growing need, EUPATI, in collaboration with the European Infrastructure for Translational Medicine, EATRIS, created a toolbox article about the different aspects of personalized medicine. This material was developed as a multi-stakeholder approach covering the different perspectives. The article is now available in the EUPATI toolbox. It presents an overview of personalized medicine as an important part of the research and development field. The article may also be helpful in addressing a better understanding of personalized medicine as a concept. The aim of this webinar is to present the definitions of personalized medicine and how it is implemented, to highlight the challenges in the field of personalized medicine, and to share about best practices of patient engagement in the personalized medicine field. But before we dig in deeper in the topic, we would like to briefly introduce you a few housekeeping rules for this webinar. The first thing is that all microphones will be in mute. This webinar is going to be recorded and uploaded openly in the EUPATI YouTube channel. We also would like to ask you to please use the Q&A box for questions and the chat box only for comments. Please ask your questions to our wonderful speakers in the Q&A box. You can also raise your hand from the button below during the Q&A session, and we are going to unmute you and give you the floor to ask your question. We may not have time to answer all your questions, but we will make sure that we monitor the Q&A box and we integrate them as the main outcome of this webinar. You also have the option to upvote the question if you have the same in mind. There is no need for repetition, and you have unlimited options to upvote questions. And finally, we would like to encourage you to be active and to ask your questions. Let's make this webinar interesting and engaging together. And now, without wasting more time, it is our great pleasure to introduce you the speakers for today. These are Marta Paiva, EUPATI Fellow and Patient Expert, Foteini Orfonitu, Global Group Digital Health Leader at Roche, Emanuela Oldoni, Scientific Program Manager at EATRIS, Elise K. Donk, Member Engagement Officer at EATRIS, and Katerina Sharapov, the EUPATI Toolbox Assistant. Welcome to our wonderful speakers. It is really great pleasure to have you all here today. And this is the agenda and the order of appearance of the speakers. And now it is our great pleasure to start with the first speaker for today, Marta Paiva. Marta is a PhD and medical writer and also a EUPATI Fellow from Cohort 5. She has more than 10 years of experience in cardiac regenerative medicine and translational research encompassing personalized medicine. Marta is passionate about science communication and currently works as a medical content reviewer at Pfizer Portugal, contributing to better and more efficient communication between patients, physicians, pharma, and other stakeholders. Marta, welcome. The floor is yours.
So, good morning, everybody. I would like to start by thanking Jana for the invitation to present here. So if we could pass to my presentation, please. Okay, next slide. So I was invited to talk as a EUPATI Fellow, and as a disclaimer, I now work at Pfizer, but the views and opinions I will express here are not necessarily the ones that reflect Pfizer views or positions. So these are my opinions on the matter. Next slide. So I would like to start with the definition of personalized medicine, and it was defined by the European Commission. And as it was defined, personalized medicine is a medical model that uses the characterization of individuals, their unique characteristics, to tailor the right therapeutic strategy for the right time, for the right person at the right time. And it also can help us determine how predisposed that person is to have a disease and to better deliver a timely and targeted prevention. Interestingly, the definition occurred officially in 2015, and it's taken almost 10 years to the European Commission to start actively implementing initiatives to implement European personalized medicine in Europe. Next slide, please. But in a more simplistic way, next slide. We can define personalized medicine using 4 Ps. So it aims to predict and help prevent disease. It allows for more precise diagnosis. It allows also for a more target and personalized intervention. And most important of all, actually for EUPATI and for all of us, it requires that the patients take a more active role in their own healthcare. Next slide. So just to give you a brief example, if you consider cancer treatment, for example, for colon cancer, as this image depicts, while traditionally all patients are treated equally based on the assumption that although they have different biomarkers, the treatment should work equally for everybody, we know that that doesn't happen. So some patients will respond positively, some will respond with no effects, and others will actually suffer from severe adverse effects. What personalized medicine aims to achieve is that each patient will be considered an individual with specific characteristics, which are determined by advanced techniques. And this will allow us to paint the picture of each individual and determine what will work for them as a treatment. So you'll have patients that will have tailored treatments, and thus the positive outcome would be better for everybody. Next slide. So what are the benefits of personalized medicine? And here I'm making a general picture. So for healthcare systems, it means that once you implement personalized medicine, you can better predict and prevent diseases. This means that you can manage better the disease and the patients, and it can also use in a more efficient way all your resources. In terms of research and pharma, it also allows you to have a better understanding of diseases and improve your treatments. We'll have more effective clinical trials because we know which people we want to target exactly, and it will also have more ethical trials. On the other hand, for the patients, and this is where I was asked to focus on, is that patients will be the ones who would have a better quality of life and overall survival. This because we will reduce the trial and error prescribing that some of you are used to. This will also lead to less adverse effects, and it increases adherence to treatment. And patients are more likely this way to receive a medicine that really works for them. Next slide. So as I said, it's important to always think that this personalized medicine implies a shift from the traditional view, where the patient actually does not have an active role, and to a role where the patient is central to the whole process involved in designing a new treatment. Next slide. So, but obviously, as we all know, when you try to implement a new treatment, or in this case, a whole new way of doing medicine, we'll have some barriers to overcome. And this will take quite a lot of effort from all the stakeholders. Particularly, and again, in a more general view, we have to consider that at the regulatory level, we need some changes in the way that regulatory processes will adapt to new technologies that allow us to better diagnose the patient, but also how they will be able to ensure equal access to all of these technologies, products, and services. This also then implies that we will have to rethink the way how coverage or reimbursements work, and how would be the payment policy for all these new advanced technologies and next generation therapies. And lastly, and most importantly, or the one that the patient can have a better, not a better input, but a stronger input will actually be the clinical adoption, because ultimately you need the physicians to be aware of the new technologies, of the new treatments, and we need them to involve the patients very early on in the healthcare decision-making process, which we all know doesn't happen as often as we would like to. Next slide. So, and if we think about the patient's perspective, there are many questions, and I would like just to highlight a few in the interest of time. Are we actually ready for this new development? Are the patients ready to communicate effectively, understand what the physicians are saying, and what are the available treatments, diagnoses, and all the new technology available? And also, and I think this is important, is how we also going to manage the patient's expectations, because there is high hopes when you know about a new treatment, but it can also be important to be aware that it might not work for you right away. There might be a lack of response because although it's personalized, it's still not the right therapy or treatment for this specific patient. Next slide. So the main concerns for patients, I believe, are summarized here. So there are a lot of concerns when what is the impact of these new technologies, new diagnoses, new treatments, what is the economic impact that it will have. There's also, and this is very common, since we have to rely a lot on patient data sharing and new technologies that will record all the information, there's a fear of sharing personal information with healthcare providers, how this information can be used, how it invades your privacy, because it could also lead to psychosocial harm or the risk of discrimination. There's also the part of the lack of education and awareness and the different ages and the skills from elderly patients. So there's a gap between the different age populations that we'll be treating. And lastly, there is also the need to change the doctor-patient relationship and to respect sometimes the right to not know. Next slide. So I believe that the way forward, and from what the information I gathered preparing for this presentation, is that we need to start empowering communities and citizens. And here I say citizens because we want to, and patients ultimately, because we will be responsible for controlling the data that is accessible to healthcare practitioners and researchers to improve diagnosis, improve treatments. So patients will be responsible as well for promoting health and digital literacy. We'll be involved in, we should be involved in that, and we should contribute actively to design accessible, reliable, and understandable sources of information. And here, I think we should also acknowledge that patient association groups or advocacy groups have a really important role, because they can actually promote education and promote the sharing of personal experience. They are our bridge to other stakeholders. They are the ones who can better understand which patients should be involved in research projects or clinical trials. They can act as mediators, and also, and we sometimes, we think a very global perspective, but it is important also to take into account the patient's values, culture, and literacy when adhering to specific treatments or diagnosis techniques. Next slide. So just to conclude, and I hope I'm staying on time, I think from the patient's perspective, we want to be considered the center point of personalized medicine. That's the premise of this. But we require a collaborative approach between all stakeholders. This means that we need to be able to engage with payers and policymakers, with industry, with regulators, with academia, with healthcare systems. And I also included digital health and artificial intelligence, which is now becoming a very critical point and subject, because we will be the main as I said, the main points of data collection. We will control eventually, or we should be able to be put in that decision of how much information we are willing to share and how we want it to be used to the benefit of other patients, for example. I think here we have to acknowledge the role that patient associations will have, or advocacy groups, because in patients who have a lesser degree of health literacy, like I mentioned, the elderly or from other developed countries, we need these associations, these groups, to help patients navigate this and also empower them. And ultimately, I think we need to promote the shift from this view, the traditional view that one size fits all, and consider that one size does not fit all. We want to have the right treatment, the treatment that is better for me at the right time and with my active role in decisions. So we want to become partners, and I think this is where the challenge lies, is that in many ways, patients are still not considered partners and key decisions in medicine as an overall role model. So, and with that, I think I kept to time. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to you. That's it. Thank you for listening, and thank you for the invitation once more.
Thank you, Marta. Thank you for these interesting insights. And also, just to remind the audience, if you have any questions to Marta or some of the other speakers, please type them in the Q&A box. Now it is our great pleasure to introduce the second speaker of the webinar, Foteini Orfanitou. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Foteini is a PhD and is the Global Group Digital Health Leader for Neurosciences and Rare Diseases at the Roche Pharmaceutical. Foteini and her team set the strategy and implementation for in-market digital health solutions that would support patients and physicians in clinical practice. And for over 14 years, she has worked with pharma companies in multiple roles, focusing on innovations that could increase treatments to improve patient outcomes. Foteini, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Good afternoon or good evening. I saw people from India, or good morning to those that joined from the Americas. Thank you for the nice introduction, and thank you for the invitation to bring today here a bit industry perspective into personalized medicine. From the introduction, you realize that I'm working in the Roche pharmaceutical company, where the main aim is to provide innovative treatments across different disease areas to help patients manage their disease. As an interest also as a company, we also go beyond the treatments, and therefore we think that we can support patients beyond the treatments, and that is using now the evolution of technologies to support patients across different needs that they may have. So today I wanted to bring an example, like not just to talk about theoretical, and to disclose some work that we did in one of the many disease areas, and really tell you how we worked with the patients, how we worked with the patient advocacy groups, and address some of the nice points that Marta mentioned, like early involvement, the different roles that patient advocacy groups can play. So I will give you a very short introduction on the disease, because I think it's important to understand what were the needs of these communities and what did we do, how are we working with them, and then I will move into more how we worked them. So if you can start with the slides, please. So the disease area that I'm going to talk about is a spinal muscular atrophy, and this is where we worked with the community to really see where and how we could develop personalized healthcare solutions. So there are treatments in the available now for these patients, and one of those treatments is also coming from Roche. But we wanted really to offer more than just the treatment to these patient communities. Next slide. So what is spinal muscular atrophy? So spinal muscular atrophy is actually a life-threatening disease that primarily affects motor function. It's a rare disease, and it's a genetic disease that may lead to death in infants and young children. This has changed a lot since the introduction of treatments, and there are 3 phenotypes of patients. The one type 1s that before the introduction of treatments could never sit, and they would die before the age of 2. Type 2, where the disease shows up a bit later. They were never able to walk, and they would require significant support, and their life expectancy would be reduced. And the type 3 SMA patients, that they would lose the ability to walk at later stages of the life. These phenotypes have changed since the introduction of treatment. And what I want to mention here, when we talk about personalized medicine or personalized healthcare solutions, each person is different. The disease may manifest in a different way. There might be younger or older. And I wanted to bring this example of spinal muscular atrophy, because you can imagine that when the disease was affecting babies, it's a very different solution that you would have to develop versus when the symptoms start showing up at a later stage in life, like when you're 30 or 40. The needs of these individuals are different, and the disease severity is different. So what we had to really consider, it's a rare disease, so it's not very common. Out of this fact, it's also that the heterogeneity is very big from the symptomatology, but also from the age groups. So how do we develop solutions that could really be personalized to this community? Next slide. So what we wanted really to do is to transform SMA patient care with the use of technology, so that we can improve their outcomes and enhance their access to innovative treatments. In order to achieve that, and I will not bore you with all the details, we had to really focus where can we add most value with the use of technology. And the area that we defined together with the community, which means people with SMA and the providers, in that case, the neurologists, the speech-language therapists, and the physiotherapists, we thought that where we can add value is to really develop novel outcome measures. And I will explain to you why that was the choice that we made. And as you can see here, and I think Marta showed the same, pharma cannot do it on their own. The community cannot do it on their own. So we need all to come together and really each one of us play the role that we should in order to deliver such novel solutions. Next slide. So what was the proposed solution, and that I just wanted to bring to you? We did a lot of work, and I will explain how we worked with the community from day one in order to really define which area has the highest unmet need, what needs to happen, what are the technologies out there, and this is where at the end we have defined what is the solution that could address the issues. And what you can see, we focused on 2 areas. One is the bulbar monitoring, which means swallowing quickness of these patients, and the other one is a fine motor. How did we come to that? Like, it's not like that we as an industry decided, oh, this is an interesting area, or it's a cool technology, let's bring it. Next slide. What we did and how we worked with the patient communities is we started from day one. So from the day one, we created a scientific advisory working group. And in this round table, we brought neurologists, physiotherapists, and the 2 major patient advocacy groups, one which is an umbrella European one, and those are parents that have kids with SMA, so they also have the experience of caring for someone with the disease, or they are patients themselves. And the other one was the Cure SMA, which is the American one. So we wanted them from day one because we wanted a strategic direction, and we wanted to identify common areas between patients and providers. Another way that we engaged with the patient communities was to understand their needs. It's very different when you have the patient advocacy groups. They represent like a broader community view versus when you engage with patients themselves, and then you understand really deeply what are the everyday needs. And what we did for that is a patient relevance study. As I said, the disease was different and the needs of these patients were different before the first treatments became available. the phenotypes of the disease changed. So we had really to understand back to basic what now is important for those patients. And I will show you an example in the next slide. Another way that we engaged with the patients was when we started brainstorming ideas of what kind of solutions we could design. You need to test these assumptions and these features again with patients. Like it's very different when we look at the technology on one technology versus how would this be now integrated into their lives, which features they like, which ones they don't like, which ones they would use, and which ones they wouldn't use. And another way that we have engaged with them is giving them really now the technology to really start using it. Does it feel uncomfortable? Would they use it when they go outside? So as we are really designing solutions for the patients, patients need to be at the core and they need to be engaged continuously so that we have an opportunity to develop something and bring something of value to them. Next slide. This is an example for that we do this patient relevance study. So what you see when we asked patients before the introduction of treatments in 2017, what are the meaningful aspects of health? You could see they said muscle weakness, breathing difficulties, fatigue, tremors, pain. When the first treatments became available, the disease changed, and therefore the needs and what is important to these patients also changed. So now, now they could stand and walk, while before they couldn't, now the lower limb difficulties is important for them. Swallowing difficulties. Before the introduction of treatments, swallowing was not really considered because the motor function was a key one. But now we discover that they have more needs, speech difficulties, and so on. So really having a constant, let's say, feedback and insights from the patients themselves is critical into developing valuable solutions for them and with them. Next slide. So what we have learned, and this is just an example of one program that we have within my company, but there are multiple ones, is patient advocacy groups and patients need to be part of the discussions of any development that is related to their disease, whether this is a treatment, whether it's a technology, whether this is like data collection. They need to be involved from the start and in an ongoing basis. And then different input is required across different stages of each project. For example, the patient advocacy groups can represent the needs of many, right? They have heard from many patients with different needs, and therefore they can really represent a broad need base. However, it's also important to understand the individual patient's perspective because they represent the in-depth the needs of an individual living with a disease. And then the last one, which is a thought and a challenge, and I would like to leave with that question to all of you, is how do we cater for the needs of the disengaged patients? I believe that all of you that are here, you are engaged, you really want to participate, give your input, learn, and really offer the service to the community. But we do know that there are many patients that are lost from the system. They don't want to be engaged. They're not part of any patient advocacy groups. How do we get to know their needs so that when we develop solutions, somehow their needs are also represented? We don't know how to do that. We are really struggling. And therefore, I think it would be a good discussion to have at the Q&A. So thank you very much. And then I will be happy to have any questions later on.
Thank you so much, Foteini. Thank you. And please ask your questions in the Q&A box to Foteini and the other speakers. And we are going to answer them during the panel discussion at the end of the webinar. Now we would like to introduce the next speaker of the webinar, Emanuela O'Donnell. She has a PhD in molecular and translational medicine, leading a project about biomarkers in neurodegenerative diseases, where she applied different methodologies and multi-omics approaches. Since January 2020, Emanuela has been working as a scientific program manager at EATRIS. At EATRIS, she combines her strong scientific background and soft skills to facilitate industry-academic collaborations, pursuing a common aim, innovation and improvement of human life. Emanuela, welcome.
Thank
The
you,
floor is
Jana.
yours.
So thank you very much for the invitation and for the introduction. And today I'm gonna bring the EATRIS perspective to this webinar. Next slide, please. Okay, so Marta already and also Tanya already explained a lot why the patient engagement is so important and plays a crucial role in personalized medicine. And I think that what also they said can be summarized in these 4 bullet points. So first of all, it's important for developing tailored treatment plans because the personalized medicine aim is to customize medical decision and treatment based on individual patients' characteristics, and therefore it is very important to engaging early on with patients in this process because this involves understanding also their preferences, values, goals, and needs. A second point why this is very important is the data collection and sharing. So patient engagement often involves collecting extensive health data, including genetic information, lifestyle factors, and personal preferences. So this data, when shared and utilized in personalized medicine, support the development of tailored intervention. But here the patient needs to play an active role and be aware about this data collection and sharing and what this entails. The third aspect, very important, is the fact that the sharing this decision making. So in personalized medicine, the patients are often active participants in the decision making processes. So the engagement is crucial here in order to choosing the right treatment option based on not only personalized medical information, so science, but also the needs to the right treatment for answering the needs of the specific patient. And overall, this will improve the outcome because engaged patients are more likely to adhere to the treatment plans because they actively participated in the decision of which treatment and also in the monitoring of their health. So given that, I would like just to share with you the EATRIS mission. So EATRIS is the European Infrastructure for Translational Medicine. Basically, it's a no-profit organization that operates across borders in Europe with the aim to accelerate the translation of research discoveries into patients' benefit. So what we do is like we support using our capacities that are within our institution and network and expertise, and we want to support academics, industry, patients, and policymakers. So our vision is really patient-centric. And how do we do that? So EATRIS made patients' involvement and engagement a key priority of its 4-year strategic plan in order to support effective multi-stakeholder collaboration and a genuine patient-centered approach in translational research. EATRIS is so committed at different levels to support patients' engagement in academic research, and the 3 main ways are depicted in this slide. First of all, we support patient education. We try to support the researchers on meaningful patients' engagement, and we support the co-creation of tools and research with patients. For more information, I just invite you to check our page. Of course, we don't do this alone, and in terms of education, patient education, EATRIS signed a partnership agreement in spring 2020 with EUPATI, demonstrating both organization commitment to provide education and training opportunities in translational research for patients advocates, and also to strengthen the relationship between patients and academic researchers. So basically, since 2020, EATRIS support and try to promote the basically the involvement of patients in the EATRIS ongoing education and training activities, like the Translational Medicine Explained course, TMEX. That is a course designed for young scientists who wants to learn more about translational research and medicine development. EATRIS During this TMAX course, also Patients Fellow participated, and here you see the success story, the good witness is an ambassador of EATRIS, but also patients advocate that participate to this course. And as mentioned also from Jan at the beginning, we helped to write 2 articles on the EUPATI toolbox. EATRIS is committed to offer continued lifelong learning opportunities to EUPATI fellows and other patients, and in the future training courses. And also there is online an openly available e-learning platform that I invite you to look at, called Transmed Academy. So basically, in terms of trained researchers on meaningful patients engagement, we collaborate also with the EUPATI, the European Patients Forum, since 2019 to raise awareness on patient engagement, and we involve them in also different activities, among which the EATRIS Plus project. Then another activity we do is that is like the organization of webinar and workshops, and one among other is the commitment to include a patient engagement workshop that was co-designed with the patient representatives and was delivered through the EATRIS Summer School in Personalized Medicine. We support also the development of scientific courses like Advanced, that was a training course for researchers in ITMP development, and there also we decided to involve patients. And finally, EATRIS contributed to the development of a globally standardized patient engagement framework led by Patients-Focused Medicine Development that ended up in a guide, the How to Guide on Patients Engagement in Early Discovery and Preclinical Research Guide. This guide offers good practices to support any researcher's patient engagement journey. Next slide, please. So in order to show you how actually we embedded strategically patient engagement in our portfolio, in this slide you can see all the projects where we are involved in. Click, please. And basically you will see in these red squares, basically the projects where there is a personalized medicine focus with patient engagement as an activity. Next slide, please. Here, these are the projects. Next. Okay, so another important activity that we do is also through projects to create activities along the patient engagement aspect. And for example, in the EATRIS Plus project, we created a patient advisory committee, the PAC group, that is a group of patients and patients representatives that consult and advise EATRIS during the project lifetime. This group is made of 7 people. You see them in this slide with different capacity and different skills. And the idea is to support the EATRIS Plus project development and providing input through the project and beyond. The involvement of these people in the EATRIS Plus project was very successful, and it was very nice because they provided the patient voice and ensured that patients were really at the center of the project mission. Next slide, please. Okay, so in EATRIS Plus, we also developed a very nice resource, the Patient Engagement Resource Center. And but for that, I will leave the floor to my colleague Elise, who is gonna bring you through this nice resource. So thank you very much for your attention, and happy to answer to any question later on.
Thank you very much, Emanuela. Thank you for this very nice presentation. And as you mentioned now, without wasting more time, it is our great pleasure to introduce your other colleague from EATRIS, Elise K. Dong. Elise is the Member Engagement Officer at EATRIS, the European Research Infrastructure of Translational Medicine, and she works closely with the 14 EATRIS member countries and is also involved in the patient engagement as well as gender equality related activities at EATRIS. And today Elise is going to organize a live tour to the Patient Engagement Resource Center. So Elise, welcome. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so you will be able to share your screen.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Joanna and EUPATI for inviting me here today. Thank you all the previous speakers. I think this is a very nice segue into what I want to tell you about today, which is something that Emanuela already showed on her last slide. So without further ado, I will just open my screen. I hope you can see it. So within a project I've been managing for the past 4 years at the EATRIS, we developed something called the Patient Engagement Resource Center. Now, we've of course established that patient engagement is extremely important everywhere, but also of course in personalized medicine, and even more so. So in 2022, we initiated this venture with EPF and EATG, the European AIDS Treatment Group, to develop a platform that would be very easy to navigate and that would contain enough useful guidance, and more importantly, would be really encouraging academic researchers to get started and more familiar with patient engagement. We had previously run a couple of surveys among our academic community, and one of the main issues that came out was that this topic was somewhat overwhelming to them, and often enough they didn't know where to start because there was already a lot of really good materials out there, but it tended to be a little bit overwhelming for them. This resource center was developed in co-creation with a lot of different stakeholders, as mentioned, academic researchers, research management staff, of course, patients, patient representatives, caregivers, research funders. We organized a lot of workshops, different focus group and task force meetings, really to ensure that this platform is fit for purpose. The platform is actually consisting of already developed resources because, as I mentioned, there's already so much good out there. There's a lot of money spent through various projects, various initiatives. We did not want to fragment the things further. We did not want to crowd the field. So with this task force and the focus groups that we had, we did an extensive mapping exercise and picked out really, I would say, the creme de la creme of resources. So each of the resources were evaluated by our task force members and then categorized into these 4 different categories: the fundamentals, planning, conducting, and follow-up, and further categorized based on what kind of a material they are. And of course, as you can see, there's EUPATI materials linked under training here. To assist the researchers a little bit with getting started, as I mentioned before, this was identified as one of the obstacles by themselves. We created a starter pack of these 5 resources that we thought were the most important for them. And then, of course, we wanted them to be a little bit more inspired. So we also identified some real success stories amongst our patient and researchers community. We were looking for, let's say, successful examples of a patient and a researcher duo working together. And we recorded short interviews with them to see maybe how either their ideas were changed about patient engagement or what were the outcomes of these collaborations. And I think I'm quite reaching my time here, but as the last kind of call to action, I would really like you to take a look at also these stories. And if you think that you know of a good one as well, we would always like to have more of these in our toolbox. So the field would be even broader and wider. So please do not hesitate to reach out to us. There is actually buttons for it. Do you have a question about the toolbox, or you want to submit the resource? So you can always get in touch with us through the form on the website. And of course, please go ahead and check out the rest of the resource center as well. You can adjust the font and brightness as well if you have some visual impairments. So yes, we wanted to really make it accessible for all. And yeah, please feel free to ask me any questions in the Q&A or in the chat. We are committed to patient engagement, so we are always here to answer some questions. Thank you very much. And with that, I will stop sharing at the moment.
Thank you very much, Alice. Thank you for this very nice live tour and for showing the benefit of this new platform. Now, as we're slowly going through the end of the webinar, we would like to introduce the last speaker for today, our wonderful colleague, Katerina Sharapa. Katerina joined EUPATI in December 2022 as an intern, and since July 2023, she operates as a toolbox assistant. Her focus revolves around enhancing EUPATI's open access multilingual toolbox, ensuring reliable information to patients and the public. And alongside with her EUPATI role, she also serves as a psychosocial liaison officer at the Federal Agency of Psychosocial Rehabilitation and Mental Health, ARGO. Katerina, welcome. Please turn on your camera and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here. And especially thanks to Jana and Ingrid for the whole setup of the webinar today. Yeah, so I'm going to explain some very important aspects of our toolbox. And of course, I have attached the link of the website so that you can individually navigate later or even during the webinar. So our toolbox stands as a reliable hub of information on healthcare topics, and particularly on medicines, R&D, and patient engagement. It houses over 4,000 items, and it was created by various experts, industry, academia. Next slide, please. So what makes our toolbox worth visiting? First of all, it is freely accessible without any usage restrictions. It allows the users to tap into information from anywhere across the globe. The content is available in already 14 languages, and the language collection is continually growing. Also, irrespective of the background, the expertise level, the interests, there's always something interesting to enhance the user's skills. And of course, the content production process and our commitment to ethical standards guarantees the reliability of the data shared. And lastly, there's no doubt that through the knowledge that the users acquire, they will be able to become actively engaged and well-informed advocates. Next slide, please. So the toolbox is categorized into two main sectors: the medicines R&D and the patient engagement. Of course, the users have the flexibility to customize their experience using specific keywords that they would like to use, or navigating through our pre-established categories. And when we talk about preset categories, we have published some very important key topics. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are some a few examples of our key topics that the users might be easily navigating. So we are going to, while we don't have the time to really explore how the structure is actually made, so to assist the users, but you can explore later, checking the link that I have already attached. Next slide, please. Of course, every key term in every article, in every resource is hyperlinked to our glossary so that the users can have more precise definitions. And again, there's always a search engine where they can refine their search using keywords, categories, tags, so to make it easier. And there's also the possibility to find the same terms in relevant articles, so to have access to more resources. Next slide, please. Yeah, and beyond our articles, the users can also have access to the starter kits that include additional links and relevant PowerPoint slide decks that could, for example, serve as a solid foundation to future trainings or seminars on specific subjects. The users can also have access to the previous webinars that we have already made. And it's always good to have a look on the guidelines about the reuse of our published material, because sometimes there are some concerns if it's a commercial product or not, and whether, for example, a company or somebody else needs authorization from us in order to proceed. And the most important part is the guidance documents on patient involvement in 4 subjects: in medicine, R&D, in ethical review of clinical trials, in regulatory processes, and in HTA. We also have published in that section a very nice video that our colleague Laia, the Open Classroom Coordinator, has made, and it's very explanatory, very worth watching it if you haven't already. Next slide, please. Yeah, and here you can have a look on the latest user statistics. We are very happy to announce that we have already reached 7 million users since the launch of Toolbox. Yeah, you can have some insights on the demographics by country, the daily, monthly, weekly activity, the most visited page, insights into device connectivity. Yeah, everything more or less is here. That's it from me. I mean, then the next slide is a thank you slide. Yeah.
I really would like to thank all our amazing speakers. Thank you so much for joining us today and making this webinar possible. We also would like to especially thank all EUPATI fellows that join us today as well. And thank you for being so active and so dedicated and passionate about the topic. We hope you have enjoyed this webinar and have learned some valuable things about patient engagement and personalized medicine in general. We also hope that you will be interested in exploring the EUPATI Toolbox and the Patient Engagement Resource Center for additional materials on the topic. In EUPATI, we believe that this is an important topic and we will continue to follow up its development. The presentations and the recording of the webinar is going to be available on the EUPATI YouTube channel, and you are going to receive the presentations via email. And we also would like to remind you that you can always check the EUPATI website and social media channels for any upcoming events related to EUPATI. So thank you so much for your participation, and wishing you all a very good rest of the day. Thank you and goodbye.